What is the worst thing a roommate of yours has done? In college I had this incredibly promiscuous roommate, though she always tried to pretend she was never doing anything. She was super secretive, but we all knew what she was up to. One night our other roommate and I had a bunch of friends over for a house party. We were all drinking and having a good time when she shows up with this guy we had never met. They hang out with us for a bit and then I eventually notice they're gone. Some of her friends were hanging out in her room, so I figure she's in there too, but when I go in, she's not there. I walk out of the room and look at my bedroom to find the door shut. Weird. I go to open it and it's locked. What the fuck? I knock and can hear her whispering, but she won't open the door. My other roommate and I manage to pop the lock and I open the door to find the guy sprawled out naked on my bed and she's giving him a blowjob. I lost my shit. Her explanation? Well, everyone was in her room and she didn't want to kick them out. It was torture the rest of the lease. Well, not my roommate. My cellmate. I did a stint in the pen. Cellmate was an 18-year-old kid who burned down a tree in his neighborhood and got charged with arson. He smelled worse than most and was probably on the autism spectrum. He proudly revealed to me he fucked his cousin. I was not inclined to ask details. He never left the cell, and I never saw him use the bathroom. He was with me for around 2 weeks. Anyways, the day he got moved I decided to clean the whole place. I left his bed and find a few pairs of underwear and socks all bundled up. I stupidly just picked it up, and out fell a behemoth ball of shit. He must have fought his heart out holding this thing in. I have no idea when the bowel movement occurred, but by the weight, color, and sheer size of the dung, it was long overdue. I lived in a house with 4 other girls. One of the girls told a friend of a friend that she ran into at a party that he could spend the night in her room. So without telling any of us, she got this drunk stranger into our house and then left to spend the night at her boyfriend's house, leaving him alone in our house. In the middle of the night, he walked into one of my roommate's room, climbed into her bed and sexually assaulted her. She was able to fight him off and he ran out of the house. When we confronted the roommate who had let him stay the next morning, she said, "Oh, well, I know that he's done stuff like that before, but I didn't think he would do anything to any of you." Double quote. Told me the day before she actually moved out that she was moving out to live with her latest of a string of boyfriends. Didn't help me find someone to take her place. Left me with the bills, which almost resulted in my power being cut. Then called me a year later, bearing in mind we worked in the same office. So it's not like she couldn't have spoken to me to demand her half of the deposit on the apartment 6 months after I'd moved out, and the night before I was leaving the country. After a 5-year friendship where I was the only one with a car and ferried her around as needed without asking for a cent. Told her I used her deposits to pay the bills she stuck me with. Not my favorite person in the world. Old roomie got shit fuck drunk while my girlfriend and I were a town over visiting some friends. We ended up coming home late night, maybe 3 AM, so we could sleep in my bed. I walk up to the door of my apt and it is wide open with blood smeared on the door. My GF starts to freak out and runs back to the car so I can go in solo. So with my tire iron in hand I walk in all stealthy like and am looking around searching. About to pee my pants. After searching the place high and low I find my roommate naked on my bed, so drunk he's barely responsive and urine all over my sheets. He has a cut on his arm that's bled on the floor and my bed as well, and he microwaved my TI-92 calculator for some fucking reason. Never got that new calculator. He always opens up my bedroom door and never closes it even after me telling him multiple times to close it. All the time. Afternoon. Morning. Night. You name it. He's just opening my bedroom door. I'm a pretty open guy, but I like my privacy sometimes, so my roommate can drive me crazy when he comes in sniffing around and just leaves without closing it. Then again, here's a dog. This is 20 years ago but still makes me cringe like a bitch. My best mate had a bad breakup with his girlfriend, so came round to my place at FCK Nozam with a bottle of Jack and some acid. I wake up the next day in a police station being told we've been arrested for performing oral sex on each other in the middle of the city we live in at 4 PM. I'm vanilla straight and shy at this point in my life and just glad I can't remember it to this day. But at least I helped a friend get over his girlfriend, so there's that. My old roommate used to leave the window open in the winter time and I would always yell at him to close it because we had the heat on. He would close it but eventually it would always end up open. It would freeze up the whole house and really pissed me off. After I kicked him out for failing to pay rent, I found out that he was actually smoking Roxy's in the room and had to open his window for the smell. Ran over another roommate's cat. Cat wasn't dead but had a very broken leg and internal injuries. She put the cat on my roommate's bed despite the fact my roommate was away for 3 days. Didn't tell me anything about it and she also goes home for the weekend. I eventually, after 18 hours, realized the cat was missing and went looking in her owner's room. Rushed her to the vet and they were able to save her. Leg was amputated. The one who ran her over showed no remorse as it's only a cat. I had a roommate who was a total piece of shit. We were good friends before we moved in together but things only got worse. She was as dumb as a rock. For reference, she asked me if she put clothes in the washer inside out if the outside would get clean. She almost burned the place down because she didn't know how to use the oven. She flooded the place beneath us because she put about 10x the necessary amount of soap in washer. Did it again with the dishwasher. She was really weird about money. She always got really passive aggressive when rent was due. She broke our glass coffee table and had a full-blown tantrum when I told her to replace it. She used all my stuff without asking and I used her hairspray once and it was the end of the world. She started seeing this one guy who was 6 years older and pretty much a deadbeat and she constantly said nasty things about my so to try and make herself feel better. When she moved out to live with this guy they broke our porch light and neither of them fixed it. One of their friends helping them move did. She didn't clean when left. And it goes on and on. Easily the worst living situation of my life. My so and I had to put up with her shit for 2 damn years. I had a terrible roommate in college. There were 3 girls plus me living in a house. 3 of us had been friends before. But as school began getting closer we got desperate and found a 4th girl on Craigslist. It started out completely fine. We liked her and she seemed pretty normal. However, as time passed she started showing her crazy. One night she was drunk and got in an argument with one of my other roommates and threw a vase through our sliding glass door, completely shattering it. She refused to clean it and refused to pay for it. Another time she got mad at us and set an alarm clock to go off for 15 minutes after she left, and then locked the door. The alarm clock went off all day and we couldn't turn it off. It was miserable. I ended up just leaving for the rest of the day. To this day, I refuse to live with someone completely random again. Had a carny roommate that invited a fellow carny to squat. They lived in the unfinished basement of our rented townhouse. 4 others in the house were college guys at the time. We lived in a predominantly black neighborhood as it was close to the college. Connie squatter was a brick shithouse. We were terrified of him. He also had some new Nazi tattoos including a swastika on his chest. We didn't know this until he proceeded to get high. He smoked and dealt crack. Out of the house no less, and chased the black children around. Shirtless. Yelling very racist remarks. We were not well liked in the neighborhood after and I don't blame the other residents at all. Luckily, our lease was almost up and we just up and moved when they were on a carny road trip. Several years ago, I was living with a guy that had a drinking problem, which wasn't helped by the fact that he worked at a bar almost every night. He would work till closing and then stay there with co-workers and drink until about 4 AM and then drive himself home. This is when he would put on the TV in the living room as loud as possible, eat my food, piss himself on our couch and then pass out. This went on for months after numerous times asking him to cut it out. I finally just found someone to replace me and moved out. Worst roommate ever. Okay, so starting my 3rd year off college I was pretty excited. So excited I partied all summer and didn't apartment hunt while I was partying all day night. So anyways, I'm headed out to college in Utah and end up in a corner party house with 3 girl roommates. Pretty girls I might add. I mean no Victoria's models, maybe the one, but very cute and fun. So after about 2 glorious months, the basement roommate's ex-BF decides to squat for 2 weeks while he finds a place. Fast forward to late November. Our electricity bills have doubled and all under our noses the whole time he was using this poor girl in the basement. He was always buying multiple zips at a time. New games, movies, food, with her money. The last straw. One morning we woke up to him screaming at her, calling her dumb and a BTCH and shit, and we kicked him out. I had no idea people could use other people so hardcore. He never paid her back. Or us. He's an ass. Not a roommate as much as a flatmate. One he would never clean up after himself. It would get so bad that if I didn't do his dishes there would be mold growing out the kitchen sink. This also led to horrible smell. I discovered that the smell was actually a growing nest of larvae in his room when I lifted a bin bag due to the smell slipping into the living room. 2. Complete lack of personal hygiene. I'm talking full grown hobo beard, never showers or brushes teeth unless he needs to go somewhere. Which he never did. He would play games until 7 AM and then wake up around 5 PM. He also had his private collection of glasses and bottles filled with urine even though the toilet was literally 2 feet away. 3. Got his junkie friends to come over and hang out in our living room to smoke pot and fart about. Note: smoking was prohibited throughout the entire building. Not only that, but he had his own personal €3,000 worth bin bag full of weed that he would sell while we had a frickin' police officer as next door neighbor. Not mine, but a friend's. He was living with his girlfriend at the time. And he also had a boa constrictor that she hated for some reason. They went on a vacation over his winter break. He was in law school, and when they were about to leave for the airport, she made some excuse to run back into their apartment where the boa constrictor was happily sitting under a heat lamp in the 70-degree air. She unplugged the heat lamp and turned the thermostat down to 40 degrees. They came back to a dead boa constrictor. He dated her for another 6 months for some reason. At this very moment, my roommate is working out with a girl who I've been trying to avoid. We hooked up after a few drunken bar nights. But I began to notice some stage 5 clinger tendencies, so I've been trying to back things off. Last night, she came over while I was hungover hiding in my room and kicked it with my roomie for a few hours. I went to get a Gatorade and she noticed I was awake. Ditched my roommate. Came in my room. Blew me and left. As nice of a gesture as that was, I couldn't help but feel like she used my roommate and pseudo-raped me. After telling my roommate about these feelings and mutually agreeing that she is kinda fucking crazy, he gets home today and tells me that she is coming over again to hang out. Needless to say, I am at the library studying for an indefinite period of time. In college I moved into a pretty sweet 3-bedroom apartment with 2 friends. For one of the guys it was his first time living away from home, and after a couple months decided he didn't like it and moved back in with his parents. The first guy he found to sublet wrote him bad checks for like 3 months and then finally peaced out one day as we started to realize what was going on. He slept on a bare mattress and drank our booze pretty liberally and left all of his personal belongings, which we promptly threw in the trash. We went through his W-2 forms and he made like 60 grand a year, so don't know why he was doing what he was doing. Our friend ended up paying for those few months. The next girl he found was certifiably crazy. Just an awful human being. She wasn't smart, wasn't nice, and had a drinking problem. I paid for all the utilities for the 6 months she was there and just settled up with the other roommate at the end. She said she shouldn't have to pay because we never told her beforehand she would have to pay for the electricity, water, internet, gas she was using, so it should all have been free. I had to threaten to take her to small claims court before she coughed it up. It was only a few $100s, but she was such a shitty person I just didn't want her to get away with it. Let's see. One roommate paid the rent and bills. We just gave him the money and he would pay what needed to be paid. One Sunday, while he is at work and my other roommate is at ECU, I get a knock at the door. Our landlady flew all the way from Oregon to NC to find out why the rent hadn't been paid in 3 months. She had no idea that I or my other roommate lived there. Ended up he hadn't paid any bills in the last 2-3 months and had a coke problem. We found evidence after he left. Lots of it. He got kicked out and we got to stay. We never got our money back. Rooming with one of my best friends, ex now, we will call him as Face, since HS. My GF moves in and everything is fine. Another friend moves in and everything is still fine. As Face was an awesome guy up until this point but was socially awkward and was a 25-year-old virgin. My GF and I made it a mission to get him laid. She invited a girl that she was friends with in HS to come over so we could get us Face laid. We told him the plan and to let us only be a one-night stand because she wasn't dating material. He ends up Wi-Fiing her before he slept with her and she moves in. She has no job and doesn't pay bills. All of a sudden she is trying to run the house and tell everyone what to do. This doesn't sit well with the rest of us. As Face doesn't even notice. The other roommate ends up moving to Vermont. Then one day at work, on my GF's birthday, I get a call from him. Power and water are getting cut off the next day. They are moving out. I ended up finding out he also didn't pay rent the last 3 months we lived there. My brother's roommate was a grade A cunt. This guy has no respect for shit. The roommate would constantly leave shit everywhere. Let his 2 little shit kids run around and burn holes in the carpet. All while his girlfriend would complain about anything and everything. When my brother was moving out, the table he had borrowed from a family member was missing. The family member was fine with it as long as the roommate paid for it. My brother never saw a goddamn penny. This guy was pulling the washing machine out of the damn laundry room and let water pour all over the floor. He left his sheet all over the place instead of neatly packing it. This guy made the apartment look like a fucking crack house. I can only imagine that my brother never got his security deposit back. On behalf of my brother, FCKUJ. Had a roommate who was very environmentally conscious, vegan. Only rode a bike. etc. It was the end of Thanksgiving break and I was the first one back. I opened the front door and the house is filled with fruit flies. I have no idea where they are coming from so I start to check around the house. I go into the kitchen and open the door to the water heater and I see a box tucked away in the corner. I open the box and I'm immediately swarmed by flies. I die a little inside and toss the box in the dumpster outside. My roommate later informs me that she was composting her food. It took weeks to get all of the flies out. She was a sweet girl but I really disliked her after that. Mine haven't been too bad thus far. Because we all seem to never be in. However, there's one, I don't know who doesn't appear to have grasped that it's rude to do things like not flush the toilet. Leave one's skid marks all over the basin for other people to clean. Or leave your knickers, plus panty liner, lying on the floor of the bathroom. Also, one of them seems to occasionally be stealing my food. It seems pretty clear that they're stealing as opposed to just not understanding boundaries. Because the container of grapes, a third of which were taken, was placed very precisely in the same place behind a whole load of other objects in the fridge. Too much effort to arrange again if you're just snacking. They also seem to think that by opening my big bar of Cadbury's very carefully, I wouldn't notice that they'd snapped off a large corner and taken it. Like, I have my stupid moments but I didn't just waltz into uni. After months of being a slob and always late with the rent, this girl had an impromptu rolling party in our apartment when she knew I had the flu. I specifically told her I didn't want anyone over because I was really sick and right as I was slipping into a NyQuil sleep, she showed up with 30 or so loud strangers. Rolling on ecstasy. I resolved to stay in the bedroom and just try to sleep through it. But she and 2 guys dragged a kid who seemed to be ODing into our bedroom, dumped him on a chair and went back to their party. I lost my shit. Kicked out everyone. Screaming and slamming doors and she got the worst of it. She said she'd be back in the morning alone. 2 days later, she still hadn't returned and the apartment had been trashed during the party. Seriously, they broke a glass coffee table, cups of cig butts and candy wrappers and beer bottles everywhere. I decided I wasn't going to clean up after her again and piled as much of the crap on the kitchen table as I could fit. The next morning, I'm awoken by knocking at the door. I assume it's her and I'm getting all geared up to give her shit. It was my landlord, who took one look at the pile of trash on the table and evicted us. I managed to convince him that it was from her and he agreed to let me stay, as long as I kicked her out, which I did and found extremely gratifying. Lessons I took away. 1. I hulk out if provoked while I have the flu. 2. Don't become roommates with a friend of a friend, particularly when the only thing you hear about them is that they're chill. I had 2 bad roommates in my apartment. The first decided not to pay rent for 2 months because Christ was compelling him to leave and he's been consulting his Christ counselor who's told him to move back home, 15 minutes away. The other ended up not paying anything for 2 months because it's just not worth the price, so I don't feel like I need to pay anything. Needless to say, they were both kicked out. After both roommates left, I cleaned out 10-12 full garbage bags of fast food trash from each room. They ended up costing me $3K in damages. Neither is anywhere to be found. Never again. Side note. The first roommate played bass and was convinced God was leading him to play in Atlanta as a hobo to bring others to Christ. You can't make this shit up. P.S. Later, after those roommates were gone, I got a new one to cover the costs for the last 3 months I was in the apartment. Turns out that was a bad idea. This guy was using my kitchen chairs to have sex with his BF in the bathroom for 4-6 hours with the shower on. Also found out the guy didn't use toilet paper. Needless to say, I kicked him out at the end of the week and threw his sheet off the porch. I lived on the 3rd floor. This will get buried, but oh well. We signed the lease in August. We were both 20 and juniors in college. So we got this nice apartment and everything was great for a while. About 2 months and she started eating everything in sight and stopped going to class. I thought she was depressed, so just brought her food and tried to do things with her like watch movies together or play games. Month number 3 rolls around and one morning I wake up and find her in the bathroom with a huge belly. She was 6 months pregnant and failed to tell me. I didn't notice because I was so busy with work and school. I just assumed she had a huge appetite and she always wore loose clothing. I never questioned it. She told me she was gonna move out and I flipped because I couldn't afford the apartment alone. When I called her parents to inform them that if she broke her lease I'd get the law involved, they come by and offered me 6 months rent up front and took her home. She had told them that she hadn't signed the lease and that I was okay with her being pregnant. It was insane. I had a deaf roommate once who liked to jack off to porn. Usually he would do so with the computer speakers turned off. But more than a few times, he'd turn on the speakers and proceed to fap to ultra loud hardcore porn. My buddies and I would be hanging out in the living room, and all of a sudden start hearing the sounds of heavily embellished lovemaking pouring from his room. Thing I never got. He's deaf, but he can feel sound, the bass. And anyone who's seen it knows hardcore porn loves the bass. So he had to know the sound was on. Maybe he didn't know just how loud it was. In any case, it was highly amusing. He was just a lazy, selfish jackass. Didn't give a FCK about anything but himself. He stayed on my PS3 every waking hour. Never contributed to the food and would eat everything. The worst thing was he always left doors open. Every other day I would come from work and the back door would be wide open. Eventually I got robbed. I say I because he didn't actually own anything. I am fairly certain he had something to do with it too, since everything was so suspicious. But with no proof I couldn't do shit but move out. FCK that dude. He cheats at Pathfinder 2. I called him out on that sheet and he got pissed and left early. After one night of some heavy drinking, I went to bed and woke up around 7 AM. I had to piss so bad, but my roommate, who had not slept and kept on drinking, Screech, was in there. He had been in there for a while and I heard a shower turn on. I thought to myself, what the FCK is he doing in there? Double quote. It then dawned on me that we had run out of toilet paper the day before. So I half laughed as I thought about how he was using the shower to clean himself off. He finally got out and passed right out on his air mattress. In comes me to take a piss. What I walked into was far more horrific than I could have expected. Not only did he take a sheet and needed to clean himself, but as he was shitting, he was puking into the tub. Knowing what he did, he tried to fix it by taking an aerosol cap and scooping the puke out of the tub. Then proceeded to take a shower. But the damage had been done. The pipes were clogged with sheet and puke. So hungover me has to get up, get dressed and drive to the store to get Drano for the tub. It's the middle of winter and it snowed a good foot and a half overnight. That tub never worked the same again after that. One day while driving to the local grocery store, I noticed a cat laying on the side of the road. It was hit by a car and quite obviously dead. I remember thinking, how sad that was, and then going on with my day. Shortly after I returned home and put all of my groceries away, I went to the common room to play some video games with my sister, who was living with us at the time. Not long after we began, my other roommate walks in crying, with a bundle in her arms. She tries to hand me this bundle saying make it better. You need to make it better. Horrified, I asked her what was in the towel and she pulled it back to reveal the dead cat that I had seen hours ago. Entrails hanging out and everything. I was frozen, not knowing what to do but make an oh my sweet Jesus this girl has lost it face at my sister in hopes that she has some idea of what to do. Meanwhile, unhinged roomie continues to cry and insist it is still breathing and we need to help fix it. We eventually calmed her down and promised that we were going to take it to a vet if she would go lay down and sleep off whatever she was on that was making her hallucinate. She agreed and my sister proceeded to take it to the dumpster and toss it in. R.I.P. Mystery Kitty. That roomie did many other strange things while on different types of drugs. Fun times. TLDR. Roommate brought me a dead cat and asked me to make it better. When I was 17, two friends and I picked up and moved from Philadelphia to Florida. We had no place to stay and no real solid plan. Just my one friend's car, a 2-seat CRX, and some money we'd been saving. We got to the beach and applied for jobs and apartments, using a payphone that one of us was always at as a callback number. This was 20 years ago, before cell phones. After about a week of living out of the car and sleeping on the beach we got a call for an apartment. So we took it. We also got hired to work as dishwashers at a nearby restaurant. Things were finally looking up, while my one friend and I went to our first day of work. The other guy packed up all of our stuff in his car and went back home, leaving a note that said he was sorry. It was the worst. We persevered, but walking into that empty apartment was a punch in the gut. Her dog ate through and or urinated on about cumulatively $500 worth of my clothing, which she would then hide around random closets around the house so that I wouldn't find it and get mad at her. When I confronted her about a particularly expensive pair of pants, she told me I shouldn't have left them within his reach, which I actually didn't. I would leave all semi-clean clothing on top of my dresser. We shared the bedroom, and she would move it to the nightstand while compulsively cleaning to distract herself from her depression. She also kept her makeup on my dresser, resulting in numerous items, including said dresser being stained with her foundation. Kept borrowing my clothes without asking. Ruined a pair of boots. Destroyed a few electronics. Never offered to replace a single thing. Of all the times that I pointed out specific damage, she said she'd take the item to be repaired exactly twice. Twice in over 100 instances. And never actually fixed either of these. Freshman year of college. I got assigned to room with the most sanctimonious, egotistical vegan I've ever met. This cunt was a lazy sack of shit. Moved like Jabba the Hutt. And thought his lifestyle was automatically better than everything for everyone. He kept old cups of his algae powder shakes to fester on his desk in the 95-degree heat. No air conditioning, because the mold spores gave the room more positive energy. He left his keys in the door and the door wide open when he left the room because he thought metaphysics would stop anyone from stealing anything. I lost a bunch of prescription meds because of that. Worst thing he did though was try to force me to try his diet. I made the mistake of leaving a milkshake unattended at my desk. While I was gone, the bastard snuck some of his moldy algae drink into my shake and stirred. Before I knew it tasted weird, I had already had a gulp or two. 12 hours later I was in the fucking hospital feeling like my gut was going to explode. I used to live in a house that had a fenced-in backyard with 2 roommates. One day when it was about 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside, my roommate let my dog out while I was at work. I came home several hours later to find him shivering by the back door. She claimed he didn't want to come inside. I don't care if he doesn't want to come inside. It's below freezing and he's going to get hypothermia being in the cold for so long. She got mad at me for confronting her, turning it around on me saying she was only taking care of him by letting him out. Best part is, the other roommate did the same exact thing a week later.